Okay, so I've scored in the top quartile of the CASPer twice now, and this is my strategies and my tips for anyone who wants to do well in the CASPer and want to get into any program, whether that be nursing, whether that be dentistry, medicine, or basically anything that the CASPer is trying to, you know, be a path towards. So with the CASPer, you have to understand what exactly it's testing you on and what the markers actually want to see from you. And there's 10 competencies that they're basically going to test you on. So I'll go through each of them. The first one is collaboration, which is how well you work with other people. So you want to make sure in your answers that you're trying to write down that you're seeking help from other people who are more superior or experienced than you and asking for other people's opinions and not only relying on yourself. So you type that out or you say that verbally. Now, in terms of communication, this is where you show that you can communicate in a way that is not confusing, such as not using any technical language. For equity, this is where you treat people equally regardless of superiority, show respect to each person, and do not, you're not looking down on anyone because of their position. Now, for the fourth section, it's self-awareness, so understand your shortcomings and then go on to do help-seeking behaviors. So resilience, which is the fifth competency, and it's basically where you don't give up, but you show that you can bounce back from any setback and continuously improve. The sixth one is professionalism, so speak and use terminology that is professional, follow procedures and best practices. 7 is problem solving, so look for solutions to problems at hand, so conflict resolution, de-escalating a situation if it's in that particular situation. Motivation, so be willing to make a difference and do the work. Ethics, follow what is considered right and do no harm. And empathy, approach people with an open mind and come from a place of understanding. Okay, so in your responses, you want to try and showcase these competencies. And it's the easiest way for you to go through and make sure that you're answering the questions correctly, and also for the markers to go through and mark you in the correct way as well. So this is the strategy that I basically used to score top quartile, so fourth quartile, basically every time that I was at the CASPer exam, which is twice. And this is exactly how I would write it. You can change things up. If you write faster or type faster or speak faster, you can say more. If you type slower or speak slower, you can say much less. So this is what works for me. I happen to have a relatively fast typing speed, so I was able to write quite a lot of words when I had to do the CASPer. I actually did the CASPer once when they had 3 questions per STEM, and then once when they had 2 questions per STEM. And in both cases, I got the top quartile. So the first one is just self-reflecting. So you want to self-reflect. So you want to reflect on your shortcomings. So I would say in the self-reflection section, I would just say, as the first part of my response, I would reflect on my shortcomings and my conscious and unconscious biases and understand the limits of my expertise. So this way, I'm showing that I'm self-aware. I'm showing that I'm not just going to do things by myself. Next, I'm going to seek help. So I would seek help from a more senior member of staff or a more superior person, and whilst maintaining confidentiality. And usually in these scenarios, someone has done something wrong. There's some sort of issue at play. And, after you've gained more advice, you would say that, okay, once advised, I would approach said person in a non-confrontational way in private. And for the fourth part, I would say I would ask open-ended questions and use my active listening skills. Then afterwards, I would say I would handle the situation referring to policy, referring to company or hospital policy. Now, all of these things are just generic. Like, you can use this in almost every single response. But you don't want to, you want to still answer the question. You still want to give a specific response. Like, if somebody was stealing from a workplace and that was the situation or the scenario that they've given you, you don't want to just say this. You want to actually have a specific response that you give, so then they know that you're actually answering the question. Now, for the specific response, it can vary. So it can be something like, I will give the customer the discount. I will ask said person to report that they have cheated on the test to the professor. And then after that, you want to follow up. So most people, they'll definitely write this, but they'll forget to write all these other things. Then after you've done this, you want to then follow up. So I would say I would follow up with my friend to see if they are okay. I would follow up with the person, and if they continue to cheat, steal, and not contribute to the particular scenario, particular team, I will escalate the situation to a more senior member of staff. So I'll show you how this works in the 3 different types of questions that we can get in the CASPer. So this whole thing is part of my my notes that you can get from the link in the description below. So if you do want to have all the access to what I'm showing you on here, including bonus content, just check out the link in the description. So Let's have a look at this first scenario, which is research integrity. Now, you're part of a research team, and a team member, Alex, discovers data manipulation by another colleague, John. So Alex wants to keep it confidential due to potential retaliation, especially since John is related to the lead researcher. Okay, so the main issue that's happening here is research integrity, and we're going to then apply our strategies for this. So question one, how will you handle Alex's request for confidentiality? So the solution is to write something like, I will acknowledge Alex's feelings of wanting to keep his involvement confidential to avoid retaliation. I will also encourage him to reach out to his support network if he feels distressed or anxious. I would reflect and understand my limitations as part of the research team, and that I may not want to jump into confronting John right away. Instead, I would refer to university policy regarding data manipulation and consult with a senior member of faculty about the situation, without exposing those involved. So once I have been advised about the course of action and how to handle the situation, I will approach John in a non-confrontational and non-judgmental manner to speak to me privately. I will bring up the issue tactfully and ask him to tell me about his thoughts. I will listen with active listening skills whilst asking open-ended questions. Furthermore, I would encourage John to amend his data manipulation and to report it to the relevant superior. If I follow up and I discover that he has not reported himself and is still manipulating data, I will need to escalate the matter by reporting him to the superiors personally. Data manipulation is a significant violation of academic integrity that must be addressed. So some people think this response might be a bit too long. You can condense this. You can make it more concise. I just wanted to make sure that I kind of got my point across. Everything I've highlighted is key phrases that I use to try and score higher in the CASPer exam. So you can see that I've written things like, I will acknowledge Alex's feelings. So I'm validating how somebody feels. I will maintain confidentiality. They love to see that. I would encourage people to reach out to their support network. It's an easy way of me saying, okay, here's me looking out for this person. Here's me showing some empathy to this person. And here's me also using my problem-solving skills. I'll reflect and understand my limitations. That's how I would showcase my self-awareness. I would refer to university policy. That's how I would maintain professionalism. I will consult with a senior member of faculty about the situation. I'm being collaborative. I'm communicating. Okay, I'm approaching people in a non-confrontational and non-judgmental way, showing that I understand empathy. Okay, so these are all skills. These are all soft skills that, through experience, I don't know how old you guys are, but most people who are sitting in the CASPer are graduates or people who finish a bachelor's degree. But if you just work in retail or you work a normal part-time or casual job, you normally would learn these skills from just existing in life and hopefully being self-aware enough to reflect on what you kind of come across. But it's hard to put that into writing. It's hard to know exactly what to say, because most people, if they had to say something like, for example, I will approach John in a non-confrontational and non-judgmental manner and ask and to speak to me privately, they might spend 2 sentences trying to write something for this if they didn't use the words non-confrontational or non-judgmental. So the phrases that I'm using here, feel free to use them, because it makes it so easy to condense the correct response into just a few words and into like a single sentence in most cases. So you want to use my strategy as much as possible. Now, this type of question is just a scenario-based question. Like most questions in the CASPer are scenario-based questions. So that's how you apply those. I'll show you one more of these, and then I'll show you the other 2 types of questions they can ask you, which aren't as common, but it's always good to know what they are, so you can just kind of prepare for them as well. Okay, we're going to go through this one. I don't think I've recorded a video where I've talked about this particular scenario before, but here's the situation. So you've been working at a coffee shop, and a coworker, Dave, frequently arrives late, leaving you to handle the busy morning rush alone. So how do you approach Dave when he shows up late? So I think this response is one I've written in a more concise way. So I would first start by reflecting on my own limitations, biases, and blind spots. I would then approach a superior to ask for advice on how to handle the matter while keeping Dave's identity confidential. Once advised, I would approach Dave in a non-judgmental and non-confrontational manner. I would ask him to explain why he's been arriving late, and I would listen to him using active listening skills and asking open-ended questions so that he feels heard. I understand the importance of not making assumptions. I will work with Dave to find a reasonable way for him to arrive early to work, such as catching an earlier bus or sleeping earlier, so that it does not cause intergroup conflict and an undue burden on other members of staff. So I'm still using my response, and especially the very last point here, I haven't really mentioned a follow-up yet. I probably should have added a follow up for this part to make this response even better, but that's just me not having written that for this particular response. But I've given a very specific response and some solutions as well. A lot of the CASPer questions I've gotten in my most recent CASPer actually kind of prompted you towards suggesting solutions. So try and suggest a solution. That could be like an educational campaign. That could be more meetings. That could be team building activities. You really have to think on your feet for these things. And if you have had a job or any experiences where you kind of had to really put yourself out there in a client facing role or customer facing role, then you're typically better, you're better equipped to do the CASPer because you have real life experience. Which kind of moves me on to the next thing, which is when CASPer exams ask you to kind of refer to something that's happened in your own life. So I've gotten a few of these before. So one could be, this is like an example. So like describe a time when you faced a similar situation, what happened and what was the outcome. So this is actually a true thing. So I worked as a small business owner and one of my staff members was regularly late or would cancel work last minute. At first, it was frustrating because I would get vague explanations as to why my staff member was late. I took some time to reflect and realized I should approach her with understanding. I asked to speak to her in private so that I can create a safe space for her to be honest. I used my active listening skills and asked open-ended questions, and she noted that she had several personal issues that she was having trouble with, such as the passing of her pets. Taking this into consideration, I made some arrangements for her to take some time off of work to grieve and come back to work later on when she's feeling more comfortable. So this is like a real life example. This is like a true example I've kind of condensed to make it an effective response. I think in my own CASPer there was some examples I used where I kind of exaggerated a few things because I wasn't 100% sure. I'm pretty sure there was a question, or there was something on the lines of, when was the time that you made somebody upset, and how did you kind of learn from it? What did you learn from it by reflecting from it? So I think I made something up about how, I had a girlfriend at the time, and like I was working too much, and that really upset her. And then I put together something where, I spoke to her, we talked, we communicated, and then we stated that, okay, well, every week on Friday night we'll go out on a date, something like that. But they can ask you these kind of personal questions, so it's good to be, one, able to think on your feet, or two, just have a bank of stories and like experiences that you can just draw upon. If you ever went camping, or if you did something like the Duke of Ed, then you might have lots of really useful experiences that you can kind of draw upon from your experience, or useful stories that you can draw upon from your experience, and then with that, talk about it in some of these responses. So first question type, scenarios. Second question type is personal questions. The last one is like a wild card question. So I'll show you an example of a wild card question. Yeah, so I think somebody I know has had a question similar to this asked from them in the CASPer. So if you were an animal, which one would you be? So as someone who prides themselves on being an effective team member, I would choose to be a wolf, as wolves exist in packs and have strict hierarchies and team structures. I would thrive in that kind of environment because of the importance I put in understanding my own limitations and seeking help from other members of my team. Additionally, as boosting team morale and being an effective communicator is important to me, furthermore, by living in the harsh winter climate, I would showcase my resilience and ability to problem solve to gather food for myself and the rest of the pack. So, like, when you have these wildcard questions, as you talk about your favorite animal, your favorite book, your favorite, I don't know, like something even like your fruit that they could ask you, you want to showcase yourself. You want to say, yeah, I like this because I thrive in that kind of environment, because I love working as a team and, boosting team morale. Like, you want to kind of use that as an opportunity to talk about those things in your response. So anyway, this is basically the advice I can give you on, the exact exam questions and how to answer them. Now, on the side note, you just want to focus on doing as many questions like this as possible. So you can use either my notes. You don't have to pay for any expensive tutoring for this test. Just use my notes or use all the free stuff that I put out there. I put it out there because there isn't many free resources out there for people sitting these exams. And I know you guys are probably in a similar position to me when you're sitting these exams, which is that you guys are just students. You guys are just starting out in your careers. If you guys are starting, full-time work, and some really effective ways that you can study for this, and that I've taught people to study this way as well, is you can use AI to generate scenarios. You can use AI to talk to AI to practice the verbal part and getting comfortable talking in the video recording kind of section for the CASPer exam. you can, yeah, that's like something I would recommend for that part. If you have a slow typing speed, just practice. Like just like keep on practicing responses on the same keyboard that you're going to be using on the day to do your exam, and you'll find that as long as you're following that strategy, it's much your typing speed would go up because you know exactly what you're going to say. Like if the first sentence is always I will reflect on my own conscious and unconscious biases. Like once you've written that out many times, like you can write that very quickly, and you can save yourself time. Yeah, so just time yourself, video record yourself. Yeah, and then you don't really need to buy any mocks. I only use the official mock that they gave us, but yeah. Hopefully you found this helpful. If you've reached the end of the video, maybe drop a comment down. Just say what you're actually trying to get into, like which program, which country you're from. I've had people from America and Canada and the UK like DM me. It's really interesting kind of seeing where everybody's from. Actually, I never thought that these videos would get so far and so many people would watch them and so many people would kind of message me and saying that it's helpful. But yeah, if there's any parts that you want to go over in more detail, just let me know. Any other tests that maybe like the GAMSAT you want some help with as well, just let me know. But yeah, good luck.